Welcome to the podcast Nerion Darkness. Today we have two special histories because two followers send us a different and interesting histories.
We don't know the truthness of this story, but it sounds so exciting and a bit of darkness. So, we're going to narrate this.
And remember, if you have a history, send it to the email nerion_darkness at sync.yahoo.com.mx.
With no more comments, we are going to start. I lived in Russia with my wife at the village. Everything and everybody was at peace. Everybody met each other and we don't have any problem. But everything changed with my wife's project. She always dreamed with the expansion of the village. But the Russian government was far from promote the development in the area. The east of Russia was the most difficult areas to populate. Despite that, my wife got to be one of the pioneers in bringing the wood cutting industry. Trees like elms, oaks, and ashes spread for all the region. With a lot of work, my wife finally brought the necessary machinery for processed trees. In the beginning, all was wonderful. The native families began to work in wood cutting, all was peace and harmony. But the progress needed more hands. The new workers began to arrive so quickly. Some with family and some loners. With them, the misfortune began. I was building houses for the new workers when the first murder occurred. Vasily, one of the natives, was ripped to pieces. His guts and his limbs were in the trees, and the snow dyed in a bright red. That's when the fear began. At first, everybody worried. They asked, what animal can do this? But with the arrival of the authorities, there was talk about a possible murder. They say the animal only left teeth or claw marks, but here there are only punches and cuts. With that statement, everyone put on alert, with distrust of the new workers, to the point that natives didn't want to work in the same section of the forest. Some began to attack the principal suspects. They tried to force them out their homes or hid them in the forest to confess. All the people went crazy, very crazy. Before, everyone meet each other. Now, everyone hates each other. And I have to confess, I also fell into that madness too. But my wife never gave up. She always tried to calm our suspicions, but it was impossible. There were two murders more that strengthened the idea that was a psychopath among us. The way that left the bodies, it was so horrible. The strange blood sculptures, the murder pillar, the arms and legs into a monstrous hoods, crowned by the victim's head, with the horrible and twisted expression. Everyone left the village. Only stayed a few of us. My wife refused to give up with her slight dream, but we were a very few. Finally, she agreed to leave. We went to sleep together. It was the last night when spring in the village. But early in the morning, she was gone. I didn't take much time to find her, and I wish never did. Well, the last time I saw her face was crowning one of those infernal huts. I lived obsessed with discovering who was the murderer. I followed every person who lived in the village. I investigated the area, but nothing. Finally, I moved to the capital, but I'd never stopped to investigate. With the time, all east of Russia was exploited to the point that there is currently deforestation. All the forests are gone, except one. One with many stories. The people say there is something evil in that place, something that kills without mercy. I don't think it's human, because from those time until now, I can move it like when I was young. I'm so old now, and this thing killed it the last year with the same brutality as before. I don't know what it is. It's something that stole my sanity. A monster. That which called demon.
This history is somewhat scary, but it is still sound very intriguing and interesting. Let's move on the next one. What happened to me was years ago, which is why I feel like I can finally talk about it. But even now, I still get chills though more than anything. I feel anger and helplessness. I grew up in a complicated family. My dad was in and out, mostly working construction jobs. He traveled to different states looking for better pay, sometimes coming back home or sending money to my mom. This constant coming and going barely covered our needs until one day he just never come back. He stopped sending money, no explications, nothing. He was just gone. At the first, we thought something had happened to him. Accidents were common on construction sites, so my mom sent me to the state where he was supposed to be working to look for him. I was about 15 at the time. I had to go cause if my mom took time off work, things would get even worse for us. We scrapped together what little savings me had and I left right away. I started at the job site where he was supposed to be, but when I got there and asked around, no one had any answers. It was like he never even showed up. I checked hospitals, police stations, nothing. After a couple of days, I had no choice but to go back home. We barely had any money left, and I couldn't afford to keep searching. After a few years, we lost a hope of ever finding him. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Some relatives say he probably just abandoned us all, but we refuse to believe it. His disappearance made our financial situation unbearable. Some days he had nothing to eat. My sister and I started working, but things only got harder. Then we heard that some of my sister's friends had gone abroad and were doing really well. They were sending money home, and their families were even building bigger houses. That's when my sister started talking about going to another country, try her luck. She keeps saying how much we couldn't help mom, how easy it could be, and how all we needed was enough money to get to the nearest border. We'll go make some money for a couple of years and come back, she said. Eventually, she convinced me. We barely managed to save enough for just one of us to go. Since my sister was older, we decided she should go first. Once she got settled, she would send money for me to join her. It was harder to convince mom, especially after what happened to dad, but after a lot in sittings, she finally agreed. It took my sister months to contact us again, so long that we started feeling the worst. My mom cried almost every night, terrified. She had met the same fate as my father, but finally she reached out. She told us the journey had been the hardest thing she'd ever done. She talked about her job at a restaurant where she worked with other migrants from all over. And of course, she sent money, just in time, when we needed it most. She kept in touch, kept sending money. A few months later, I started preparing to join her, but then, just like that, we stopped hearing from her. Weeks passed and we were back in that same horrible place, just like with my dad. Every day, the anxiety got worse, and when weeks turned into months, it became unbearable. Even now, thinking about that time haunts me. My mom begged me not to leave, but all I wanted was to find my sister. I didn't know where to start or what to expect. I just couldn't believe that we'd been cursed with the same tragedy twice. She had to be somewhere, and I was going to find her, no matter what it took. So, even though my mom begged me not to go, one night I ran away and set out for that unknown country. The journey was hell. Every day I wondered how my sister had managed to survive it. I was used to hunger, but the thirst was unbearable. My feet ached, and the money I had once to would be enough barely got me anywhere. And when I finally arrived, things only got worse. I can't even describe what I feel like to be in a foreign place with no idea where to go. It's a mix of loneliness and constant danger. Your head pounding, knowing you don't belong, knowing what at any moment something could go horribly wrong. It is a state of non-stop anxiety. After a lot of effort, I found the restaurant where my sister had supposedly worked. I waited outside, hoping to get some information for employees. Finally, I managed to confirm that she had, in fact, worked there, but they told me she hadn't shown up in months. No one knew anything else. I had no choice, but I get a job at the same restaurant and see if I could find any answers. The owner hired me immediately. His entire staff was made up of immigrants. That way, he couldn't pay us much less, especially those without papers. Once I started working there, I realized that most of the employees had changed since my sister hadn't been there. People didn't last long. They either left or moved around a lot. That made it even harder to find information. I asked everyone I could until finally I found someone who had knew her. I heard you're looking for your sister, they say. She and I used to live together, just a few blocks from here. It's better to live close to work. You don't expose yourself as much. But I need to tell you the truth. Your sister was taken. For a second, I thought they meant she had been deported. My heart sank as I imagined the nightmare of trying to track her down. Wait, don't tell me she was deported, I say. No, man. Immigration barely even does anything around here. Someone took her. A guy. He used to come here all the time, but I haven't seen him in a while. He talked to your sister a lot. Last time I saw her, she was with him. I think they were together or something, but she never told me anything. Though I don't know his name, if that helps.
With the name that person gave me, I regained hope of finding my sister. Even though it was just a name, with no address or clear face, the search was long. I asked in different employers, but no one knew anything beyond his name. Once again, I was stuck. After much thought, I decided to change restaurants since I didn't think he would come back, especially after taking my sister. The thoughts of what the man might have done to her filled my mind and made my blood boil. I knew nothing about him, but I hated him deeply with every fiber of my being. The nightmares started haunting me. I saw my sister crying tears of blood, wandering through dark places. I spoke to her, but she could hear me. I ran to reach her, but the distance never got shorter. It was like running through mud, while that man loud at us from afar, an endless cacophony of sadistic laughter that jolted me awake every time. The person who told me his name also helped me get a job at different restaurant, still in the same region but on the other side. I talked to my friends from the place I recommended to you. The guy you're looking for drugs by there sometimes. They say he's into a shady stuff. I know, you're looking for your sister. But don't go asking questions. Remember, he is from here and we are not. Besides, there is a rumor. He's looking to take another girl. I'm telling you, don't mess with him. He's a criminal. And those guys are worse than immigration. That's what he told me. But I was determined to find her, or at least learn what had happened to her. When I switched jobs, I followed his advice, and I didn't ask any questions, don't even to the other employers. My plan was to waiting for him to show up and follow him how even I could. I didn't take long before I finally saw his name on one of the orders. I peeked into the main dining area as discreetly as I could, and there he was, just as my friend had described. A tall man with shoulder-length grey hair. Despite the grey, he looked much younger than I had imagined. My friend had told me he was quite old, even overweight, but the face I saw was of someone at most 30, maybe 36. The moment I saw him, I made up an excuse that I wasn't feeling well. My boss and I know he'll let me leave. I hid in a small park across the street waiting for hours for the man to come out. I had no idea what I would do when he did. I didn't know what might happen, I wasn't thinking clearly. Eventually, he walked out, going to his truck, and just sat there. I held my breath as a thousand thoughts raced through my mind. Maybe he had noticed me and was calling the police. But no, he was just sitting there, nothing more. The hours passed until the restaurant closed. The last customer were leaving when the man started his truck and parking right in front of the park. I was ready to follow him on an old bicycle I got him, but he kept waiting. The employers come out to clean up, and one of the waitresses approached his truck. I had my feet on the pedals, ready to follow them. I knowing what was about to happen. If he took this girl, maybe I could finally find out what happened to my sister. I know, it wasn't the smartest idea. Maybe I should have called in to the authorities. But I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to see her one last time. I just wanted to know. They exchanged a few words and she go into his truck. I followed them as a best I could. Keep up with a truck on a bicycle wasn't easy. Through the city it was manageable, but once he got onto the alleyway, he quickly gained too much distance. I pedaled as hard as I could, my legs burning, my breath running out. I followed for about half an hour until I reached an emergency stop. There was his truck parked. I stopped several meters away and watched. The truck was off, and there was no sign of anyone inside of nearby. I looked into the dense forest, but I saw nothing. Carefully, I crept close to the truck. It was empty. Scanning my surroundings, the only thing that made sense was that they had gone into the woods. My mind went straight to my sister and the danger this girl might be in. Without hesitation, without much of a choice, I followed. Inside the dark forest, I could barely see where I was stepping. The thick canopy let no moonlight through, but the darkness allowed me not eyes a faint flickering light in the distance. I approached carefully, pulling out a knife I had taken from the kitchen. I was full prepared to face that bastard. But when I finally got close enough, reality hit me like a punch to the gut. The light was a massive bonfire. I saw 12 figures dressed in blood-red robes, dancing silently around the flames. The girl was lying on the table, seemingly asleep or unconscious. The man raised his hand and everybody stopped. I recognized him instantly. His gray hair picked up from under his hood. They formed a circle around the fire. Each one took a bucket placed nearby. The man stopped beside the girl and raised his hand once more. I have no idea what was happening. My mind went blank as I watched the bizarre ritual unfold.
I wish I had never said it. I wish I had listened to my mother. When the man lowered his hands, the other poured a liquid that looked like blood into the flames until only embers remained. Then they all knelt, pressing their foreheads to the ground. For some reason, I dropped to my knees. Too, I don't know if it was fear of what I saw next. From the embers, something began to move. A creature emerging, stretching itself until it was fully revealed. It was enormous, at least 2 or 3 meters tall. Its shape resembled an owl, its white feathers glowing under the dim moonlight. It walked toward the girl, from which it feeds, four impossibly long human arms extended, lifting her off the table and bringing her to its beak. Then I started eating. Then it started eating her. The wheel woke up and let out a scream that snapped me out of my trance. My head pounded in my chest as that thing it kept bleeding into her stomach. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran. I sprinted back to highway, jumped into my bike, and didn't stop. Fooled by sheer terror, I feel no exhaustion until I reached the small room I called it home. I cried for hours and didn't sleep for days. I didn't know what to do. The only thing in my mind was the sound of the scream and those monstrous human arms. I thought about calling the police. I didn't care if they deported me. Then I had the dream that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The owl stared at me and said, I am greater than you and everyone, greater than the sun, the stars, greater than you good and all gods. If you don't know, believe me, let her tell you. From where it first, my sister emerged and said, Don't worry, little brother, go back to mom. I couldn't resist. No one can. Anyone you tell will join him. Go back. One day, all humanity will be his. Maybe I am cooler, and I went back to my country. I told everyone I couldn't find her. Then immigration caught me and sent me back. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's really greater than everything. Since that night, I dream of him every day. One of its fingers always touches its beak, as if I tell me to stay silent. But I don't want to obey anymore. I found that I can only write about him. That's why I'm sharing this here, because when I try to speak, I can't. I know his name, my sister said in my dream, but I can only write him, only him. This history just reminds us how terrifying a situation can be. Whether hypothetical or not, it's always important to stay cautious and have emergency contacts ready. I hope you enjoyed these two histories shared by our followers. We are Jacobo and Sai, and we wish you all a good night.